The Major Fitness Spirit B52 multifunction Smith machine and power rack has a lot going on. And while there's a lot of cool stuff you can do on it, the first thing you have to do is put it together. The unit does come with some pretty good instructions, both written and there's a video guide on Major Fitness's website, and those will help you. However, as I put mine together, I did run into a few areas where a little extra information might be helpful. So I made this video to help walk you through some of the more difficult parts of the installation. What I recommend is that you watch this video in full before you start the installation so that you know exactly where you're going to have some issues and you can avoid problems long term, because with how this goes together, if you make a mistake early on, you're going to end up with a lot of extra work later on to try and undo that mistake. So without further ado, let's get to installing the Spirit B52 multifunction power rack by Major Fitness. Today we are assembling the Major Fitness Spirit B52 Power Cage Smith Machine Half Rack combination. It comes in 4 boxes like you see here. And my first tip for installation is going to be to lay out the boxes and open them up so that you can have everything at your fingertips. Normally with something smaller, I would say lay out all the parts, but in this instance, we're going to leave everything in the box. Tip number 2, very, very important. The width on this machine, including the barbell, is going to be about 84 inches. You're going to want to leave yourself 2 feet on either side of the bar so that you can load the weight safely. So I have about 12 feet in width right here to install the machine, and that way I'm not running into this wall over here when I'm putting the weights on. And you'll see once this is assembled why that's important. But first 2 steps, lay out your boxes and make sure you've got enough room to install the machine. First of all, you're going to need a pair of gloves. I can't recommend these enough. You're going to pinch your hands, you're going to hurt yourself if you don't have a pair, so it's always recommended to have these. Get yourself a box cutter to open all this stuff up. Everything inside is packaged very well, but that means you're going to be opening a lot of cardboard, tape, packaging, plastic, etc. And then I also recommend getting a couple of longer handled crescent wrenches instead of the wrenches that come with. And then the Allen key that you're going to use is a 6mm. And I really like these T-handled Allen keys. This is going to give you much better purchase. It's going to not hurt your hands doing it. It's going to allow the assembly to go much quicker. Just having the right tools is going to shave a bunch of time off of your assembly. So get these together first, get your boxes open and laid out. Normally I recommend to check the packing list to make sure everything's here. With so many parts and pieces, I'm not going to do that. Hopefully I don't regret that down the road. But we're ready to get things put together. I'll come back at you the first step. Getting on to step 1 in the installation. First I made a mistake. The actual instruction manual is in box 4. It's kind of in between these long uprights. Something else that you're going to want to locate for each of the 4 boxes as you've got them laid out is each box has a packing list in it. And as you go through the instructions, the parts are going to be labeled with letters and numbers that will correspond to what's on the packing list for each box. Unfortunately, each step is going to require parts from different boxes, and because there's so much stuff packed together, it's going to be important for you to be able to quickly find the parts that you need so that you don't have to dump the boxes out everywhere. So pay attention and find these packing lists, keep them with the appropriate box, don't throw them out, and that'll help you go through things a lot quicker. The second thing is the instructions say many times already to only hand tighten things as you go through and put things together. That's always a good idea on a big thing like this. What'll happen is if you tighten everything down all the way up front, then what's going to happen is you're going to have things that don't fit down the road. So just hand tighten everything at first, meaning just gently tighten everything by hand, and then you can go through and tighten everything back up completely once the entire machine is assembled. But let's get on to the next step. The first few steps, actually the first bunch of steps of putting this together, are going to be getting these structural uprights together. So your feet and these posts. And I want to emphasize again the importance of not tightening all of the bolts all the way. Most of the holes that you're going to be dealing with in these uprights are oval shaped, and what that's designed to do is give you a little bit of play so that you can fit things in, and then once everything's fit together and put together loosely, you can then tighten everything down. Now I said before you want to finger tighten. A lot of these nuts have nylon inserts, so you're going to need to use some tools to get them tightened down further. But get them snugged up to where they're almost tight and then stop there so that you can kind of see on this one here. That's about how much you want. Now this isn't going to fall over, which brings up the second point. I'm putting this together by myself. So if you're putting these together by yourself, this would definitely be a little bit easier with 2 people. And if you have 2 people available, I recommend that. But if you don't have 2 people, so far I'm doing pretty good on my own. I do want to recommend having 2 more tools. A rubber mallet came in handy for one particular portion, and then also a ratchet driver. So I've got a 14 millimeter and a 17 millimeter socket. And the socket wrench has been a lifesaver, because if I'd had to put all these nuts and bolts together with just the 2 wrenches, one at a time, I wouldn't have hardly any of this done so far. So there's your update so far. Let me get back to work and I'll give you some more tips along the way. We've reached a point in the instructions where the instructions aren't really clear enough to get you to do it the right way the first time, and I definitely put these together the wrong way a couple of times, so I wanted to take a second and show you how to set this up so that they're done correctly. We're at the point where we're on step 4, where we're putting together these carriages to go on the uprights for the pulley system, and if you don't put them together right, the pulleys aren't going to route right, and if you get it together wrong up front, everything's going to be assembled. You're going to have to take a ton of stuff apart if you don't get it correct. So if you look on the instructions here, there's just a little blobby, inky little picture with 2 letters that indicate both parts that you need. And the parts are the carriage itself and the pulley system. What they don't really do a good job of indicating is how these go together. So what you're going to want to do, let me get this one apart here, pull the bolt out of the pulley, so that you basically got a bolt, 2 washers, and a nut. These carriages, which are going to slide up and down, you want the adjustment knobs on the inside. So you're going to want to set these up on the inside, and then as you're facing, you want this portion of the pulley system facing up. You don't want it down, you want it up. So if you don't have each side assembled so that one's on the right, one's on the left, adjustment knobs in the middle, and these facing up, you're going to find yourself having to put this back together. Once you have this oriented correctly, then it's a relatively easy matter of putting this together, sliding the bolt through, and then tightening this nut down. And then what I've noticed on this other one that I put together here, you're going to have some up and down and some play like this, no matter how much you crank this down. This one I've got tightened quite a bit, and it's still a little bit wobbly. So I don't see a way to make that tighter. If later on in the installation there's a way to tighten that up, I'll definitely show you. But the important part is to make sure that both of your carriages and pulley systems are set up so that they can slide onto the uprights and you don't have to put things together a second time down the road. And here we have the pulley and carriage system attached to the upright. So basically it's a pop pin that screws in, so this just pulls in and out, and then it seats in the holes. You can tighten it down from there, but what you can see is the way that this attaches is it goes on over the top of this upright. It's the only way to get it on. So if you were to, for some reason, put this on upside down or put the adjustment knob on the other side, all of which are possible, once we put the top portion on, there's no way to change this around without completely disassembling the unit. So again, just wanted to take a minute and really point out the importance of getting this particular part of the assembly right. And there's virtually no direction in the instructions on how important this is, how these 2 pieces go together, or the orientation, other than really squinting at the picture and then looking further down in the instructions to see how the cables route so that you can make sure these are in the right way. We're at the point where I'm putting these rollers, I guess you call them, in the top cross members where the cables are going to route through, and you have to put in 4 of these. And the way that they go in is there's a whole bunch of bits and bobs that go. So A, I want to show you what order they go in, but B, it's real easy to put these in wrong, and if you end up with them out of alignment, what happens is then, and you can see I lit this up so you can see this pulley under here. If this pulley on top is at all crooked, then the cable as it routes through here isn't going to route into here right. And while it'll work okay at first, it'll add a little bit of extra friction, so you're gonna have uneven pull on either side. But over time, that's gonna wear the covering off of the cable. So it's real important that you get these in straight, and it's real easy for them not to be straight. And here's why. Basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the long bolt, you're going to slide one of the washers onto the outside, and then you're going to slide this spacer on. And the holes in either side here, which I'll put my fingers through right here where this bolt is going to go through, are big enough for the bolt for this spacer to actually fit in. But it's also big enough for the spacer to slide inside, which allows the bolt to move sideways. So as you put these in, you're going to want to hold the spacer so that it doesn't move in, and then seat that in through the wheel. And what I've been doing is take that, and I'm leaving a good amount out here, get it through here so that I can see the other one, sliding the other spacer in and leaving that out, and then pushing it to the point where I can see, and you can see the threaded end is now coming out. So what I've got is both spacers are seated inside of that opening, and I can now put the last washer on, and I can hand tighten this. Now, nothing's going to push those spacers in all the way to where they're going to go in and then fall out of seat in the opening in the hole. And then, so what I'll do is I'll put the crescent wrench on one side and then this on the other side. Oop, and there we go. So what I've done is I've pushed the, I'll just do it wrong so you can see it. It's pretty touchy, which is why I wanted to show you guys how this comes out. So if that spacer falls inside and doesn't reseat in the hole as you tighten this down, what's going to happen, and yep, we're crooked. So what's going to happen is now, and I don't know that you can see past, but when I look down through the top here, I can see that this piece is slightly off because that spacer inside has gone inside and come out of the way. So I'm gonna have to pull this back out, set all that up again, tighten it back down, and then make sure by looking down through the top that the grooves in these wheels are matched up. Honestly, it's a real pain. I wish these spacers were just a tad bigger. If they were a tad longer, they wouldn't slide inside like that. But you got what you got, and it's important to catch it. And this is the fourth one, so it's not a problem to get them all in right. I've had to redo all of them at least once I've got them in, but there's a little bit of a knack to it. So hopefully that helps you guys have a heads up. I know my first instinct was to just put them in and crank them down, and then I just happened to look down and see that the wheel wasn't lining up on one of them. A few minutes ago, I said you were going to need a rubber mallet, and this is a great example as to why. Once you get those wheels in, you're going to put these cross members across the top, and we're going to start getting everything together. So I've got a couple more quick tips for you. Number one, when I talked earlier about hand tightening your bolts, you can tighten the rollers, you can tighten the pulleys, you can tighten the little attachments on the feet. What you don't want to tighten all the way are the actual uprights themselves, because as this all now starts to go together, getting these to line up is going to be hard if you've tightened those. But everything else you can pretty much tighten down. It's just the uprights and the structural part. And then what you need this for is as you put these on here, this back portion is going to seat kind of over the bottom post. There's a smaller portion of the top post, and the top goes over it. But because these are powder coated, they don't just slide on, and you can't wiggle them hard enough. So you can hold up one side so it goes in straight and then hit it there. You want to use a rubber mallet so that you don't damage it. If you don't have a rubber mallet, you can take some of the cardboard that you get and then maybe put a towel over that and use your regular hammer. Just be real careful. A regular hammer will cut through that cardboard, but that's one way to do it if you don't have a mallet. But I've used this already. I've used this on a couple different parts of the installation, and it has come in handy. So let's get the rest of these cross members on here and we'll keep going. This particular step is written in very large letters in the owner's manual. However, it does refer to a couple of parts by their part numbers, which unless you page back in the owner's manual, you won't know what they are. So I wanted to just give you a visual of this on this step right here. I've already done the other side. Basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this barbell and you're gonna hang it on the hooks here. I think this is called part X or something like that. And then what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna need to take the sleeve of the barbell off. So that's pretty easy to do. You're going to just loosen this screw on the end here, and it's gonna come right off. And don't lose the washer, that's gonna be important. And then you're gonna slide the barbell sleeve off of the barbell. So not something you would normally do with a standard barbell. Then you're gonna take this little piece right here and you're gonna slide it. And the way that you want it is you want this flange on the inside. You don't want it on the outside or it's not gonna connect okay. You want the flange itself on the inside. And what that's gonna do is that's going to end up attaching to this particular piece right here. And then you're just gonna slide the end back on the barbell. And it does kind of seat into place. And then once it's in place, you'll be able to screw this back into the end and then tighten that back down. Unlike if you're used to working with barbells, this barbell sleeve does not spin. So you're going to tighten this down and it's gonna be tight and it's not gonna spin at all. Now with this particular type of barbell and a Smith machine, you don't need that, but don't look for the barbell sleeve to spin, it is fixed. Putting the cable in is gonna be a little tricky in a couple of different places, so I wanna give you some close-ups of areas that I had trouble with and how I solved those issues. The first one is when you take the cable and you unwrap it, you're gonna wanna make sure it's uncoiled all the way. You don't want any of the loops in place. Otherwise, what happens is when you try and pull it through the pulleys as you thread it through the system, it gets bound up and tangled and things. So first step is to just unwind it, make sure that it doesn't get all twisted up. Those of you who've been around long enough to remember corded telephones, it's kind of the same thing. You end up with a lot of this type of stuff if you don't make sure that it's completely kind of unwound and uncoiled. So that's step one. We're gonna start with this end of the cable and we're gonna feed it through the system, and you're gonna start on the front of the machine and you're gonna go straight in through here and then up so that you've got it threaded through like that. It's going up and around and up the back. Next one is we're gonna go straight up along the pole here and into this top opening through the top. You've got a roller up here, pull it up and thread it through the roller, and you're gonna go across to the roller on the back of the machine. Okay, we're feeding it across the top of the machine. We're gonna go back to this back roller and then straight down. So you're gonna be able to feed this straight down through. So far, this is gonna be a nice open path. We shouldn't have any issues right now. Make sure if you can that you're keeping the cable inside the groove of the roller. If not, we're gonna go back and double check everything before we're done. But it is easier if you've got it so that as you pull through, everything pulls through real nicely. Now we're gonna go down to one of the rollers on the bottom here, and I'm gonna show you the first place that you're gonna run into an issue and how to fix it. Okay, so we've threaded the cable through the top of the machine and we're gonna come down to this first roller, and this is where the weight horns are. So this is the roller that was pre-installed on this assembly. It's not something that we put in during assembly. And what you'll find is that this little head right here doesn't actually want to fit underneath. It actually physically won't go under the roller, and there's no other way to get it under there. So what you're gonna have to do, and this isn't in the instructions, you're gonna have to take this wheel off. It's not a big deal. You're just gonna undo the screws, pull the wheel off, and let me do that real quick and I'll show you what to do. Okay, so we've undone the screws, and you've got a washer on this back side here, and you also have a washer on the front side. So just pull that whole assembly out. It's like every other thing on this machine is the washers and the nut and the screw go in the same way. You're gonna pull this wheel out. Then you're gonna put this cable in here and you're gonna set the wheel down on top of it. And then that's the only way to get this part under and back up. So once you've got that in place, we're gonna go ahead and put the screw back in. And unlike a lot of the other wheels that don't line up real easily that I showed you earlier, these wheels line up just fine. There's no issues putting them back on. You just, again, you needed to get this little head through there. So once that's through, that's the first major issue overcome, no big deal. But I did spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out a way to get it through, and it just doesn't go through without taking out the wheel. There's a pretty good diagram in the owner's manual that shows you the route of the cable, but where we're at is we're coming up from the pulley that I just had to remove to get it routed, and we're going right up through here across these two cables, and then we're gonna go back down again to the bottom. And this is going to give you a little bit of trouble if you try and keep the cable in the groove at first. So if you try and feed this through and keep the cable in the groove, there's not enough room actually for it to go all the way around the outside. There's not enough room for this piece to go all the way around the wheel. So what you're going to do instead is you're going to thread it through in front of the wheel. So as you can see there, I'm not putting it around the wheel itself. I'm putting it around the bolt that holds the wheel in, and the same with this other wheel here. And you can kind of reach your finger up and grab it and get it back out. It is a really tight spot, but you can, as you can see there now, this isn't routed on either of those pulleys, but now that just the pulleys up, just the wires up in there, now you've got room to get it seated where it's supposed to be and get it all set to go so that it pulls nicely. And it's still going to be a little tricky. This is a real tight space up in here. This is the hardest part of the whole cable installation, so once you get past this, you are home free. Sorry for my arms being in the way here. Let's get this seated. There you go. So you can kind of get up there. Now you can see that it's real nice and it's seated in there. But again, if you try and feed this through around the top of the wheel, it's not going to fit. Now we're going to go back down to the bottom and feed it through a couple more pulleys down there. These are the last two pulleys to feed the cable through. So you're at the bottom. We've come down from up top where we just kind of snuck it through the side that I just showed you. You're going to come through here. This does actually fit through just fine. So you're going to be able to feed it through this one and then keep it in the groove. And then this one, I like to go ahead and just do the same thing we did up top, which is pull it around the side, because there's plenty of room in here to grab this. And then once it's through, you can then just put the cable in the groove. And then now we're ready to attach this up to the trolley up top, and we'll be all set to go. Now that we've run it through all of the pulleys, we're going to hook it to the bottom hole. Now there's more holes here because what's going to happen is over time this cable is going to stretch, and in order to take the slack out of the cable is you're going to just be able to move it up. But for this first installation, you're going to put it right on this bottom hole right here. And just like all of the other parts of this machine, you're going to take your bolt, you're going to put on a washer, you're going to thread it through the parts, another washer, and then the lock nut, tighten it down, and your cable system is installed. I will give you one tip, is it should pull very smoothly when you're done. If you feel any resistance or you feel any kind of weird, uneven or unsmooth pulling, unsmooth, I don't know if that's a word, but if you feel anything out of the ordinary, check to make sure that your cable is actually seated in the groove on every pulley. What happened on the first one was up top, the cable had come out of one of the grooves and it just felt a little bit rough. Just make sure that it's in there. It should go very, very smoothly. But that's it for the cables. And there you have it. It's all together. All the accessories are on. It went together relatively smoothly. I did do the entire assembly by myself. It would be easier with two people, not only from an ease of assembly standpoint, but from a time standpoint. I think all in, I probably spent about 4.5 hours putting this together. So it did take longer than I anticipated. Part of it was that I stopped and filmed a little bit, but it's probably going to take you anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to put this together. So as your budgeting time, allow that. Also at the beginning of the installation instructions, I kind of commented how much room you need around this. So the way that I position this in my gym so that I can actually get to everything, and this is going to be important to you as well, you're going to want to leave 24 inches on the side from the foot to the wall, and then 24 inches from the other foot to anything on the other side, other wall, and then also 24 inches from the back bottom portion of the rack to the wall. And what that allows you to do is that's going to allow you to be able to safely load the weights. A mistake that I see a lot of people make is when they put something like this together, they buy it for compact space-saving reasons, but then they tend to assemble it close to the wall or on either side or on both sides, or they wedge it into an alcove, or they push it closer back. And here's why you don't want to do that. If you want to be able to use the weight storage horns on the back, you've got to have a good 18 inches to be able to actually get back there and put the weights on and off. Same thing with either side for loading weights on the barbell that comes with it, or a standard 84-inch barbell that you might use for on the front of the rack with the J-hooks and then the safety arms. So just be aware that you're going to need a little bit more space than you might have originally thought. and to plan accordingly. This does weigh almost 400 pounds assembled, so while it's fairly easy to move around during assembly, once everything is on it, this thing is pretty much going to sit where it's going to sit. So make sure you assemble it in the right place to start off with. And there you have it. That's it. I should have, if you're interested, I do equipment reviews on the GymCrafter website and GymCrafter YouTube channel that you're watching now. I am going to do both a first impressions video of this where I kind of run through all of the features and give you some close-ups. So I know a lot of folks watch these installation videos before they buy something to see what they're in for. Look for that first impressions video on the GymCrafter YouTube channel. And then about 4 to 6 months after having this and training on it, I'll post an actual review of the product. So, but thanks for hanging with me so far. If you need any more help, drop me an email at tim@gymcrafter.com. Otherwise, enjoy your new Major Fitness Spirit B52.